In today's video, we're discussing the seats and stations organization. First of all, I want you to consider this. According to a study at the University of Salford, a well-designed classroom can boost student performance by up to 16%. That means that your classroom design can have a significant impact on your students' performance. So it's essential to thoughtfully and clearly consider all facets or aspects or sides of your classroom design. So what we conclude from this passage is that it's not enough to only master the skills of planning your lesson, managing the behavior of your students, and etc. No, it's also important to set your classroom suitably or properly so that all of your kids or students will be engaged, okay, and will be welcomed in your classroom's atmosphere. Let's dig deeper into today's subject. The first organization or seating organization is the traditional one, okay? It's when you put all of the desks like in rows, like that. Now, this seating position has some pros. First of all students can see the teacher clearly, and that's obvious. Two, this organization is ideal for quizzes and exams. If you want to make sure that each of your students is working independently without any help from his peers or her peers, then this is the suitable organization. The cons of this organization is it's going to be teacher-centered classroom because you're always standing in front, you're lecturing them or giving them a presentation, and they're only being listeners. They're not interacting with your lessons. The only way they're interacting is by asking them questions and they're answering you. So there's no interaction between students and they're going to feel boredom. The second seating is the W shape. Now, you could only make one U shape. It depends on the number of students and the space of your classroom, or you can adopt the W shape seatings. The pros of this one is it's ideal for smaller classroom. If the space of your classroom is tight, so this is the ideal way. Good when giving a presentation. If you are, let's say, explaining a concept for a certain amount of time, and then you're going to go to individual work or group work or whatever. So this time, the presentation time, you'll make sure that all of your students are with you, are listening to you and paying attention by seating them this way. The cons of this seating is it's harder for the teacher to go around in the classroom, okay? If you want to go to the end, to the back of the classroom, you have to go all the way around the U shape. One-to-one support is more or less of the table here. So in this option here, you cannot go to each student and pay attention to all of his details or needs. While if each student is alone, if someone, let's say, raises his or her hand and they need a direct help from you or one-to-one communication with you, you're gonna easily do that. But here in this condition, if you're gonna, let's say, go to student A over here, student B is going to be so involved, and student C and D is going to be involved in your private conversation, okay? Number three, students in the back might feel a bit left out as well, okay? Otherwise, you need to always go around here inside this U shape so they can feel that they're engaged and you're addressing them all. The third one is pairs. The pros of the pair seatings. It's more fun with two, but still gives you a nice overview. So the students are collaborating with each other, each pair, they're working together in a team, but in a smaller team. But still you can have a full overview, like it's easier to monitor two kids at a time rather than 4 or 6 kids. So if you're coming here to pair A, for example, and you're checking each of the students' work, how are they working independently and how are they collaborating with each other. This way it's easier for you. You can spot the weaknesses or the strength of each student. Number 2, in this way, students can get their heads together when needed. Let's say, first of all, there's an individual work, and then you want them to pair up, to think together. Think, pair, share, for example. This way, it's so easy because they're already seated next to each other. You can also easily divide your classroom into 3 columns of pair. So this is the first column, the second one, the third one. And it's so easy to do that. Okay, it's not a hassle. The cons of this position: needs routines, as kids tend to be sociable during work. So let's say you're giving them a project or a task to finish. If you'll go and manage or be supporting this pair, these pairs, let's say over here, are going, maybe they're going to socialize instead of working. So the only con, but if you were aware of this from the beginning of the year, you can set some routines for these kids, okay, to be making the best out of this position. Number 2, sometimes you get in trouble as one kid might not want to pair up with a student you choose. Okay, so maybe you're seating them the way you want. Maybe the student doesn't want to be next to the student, so you might face some problems here unless you give them the freedom to choose who they want to pair up with. But anyways, this could also be a hassle for you because kids tend to fight sometimes, okay? They won't agree or make up their minds easily. This position or seating is groups. The pros of groups is it's ideal for students-based learning. So students are going to be responsible for their own learning. Ideal for students' independency. They're going to depend on themselves, on their ideas, on their collaboration and cooperation. The groups, automatically, they're going to compete between each other. So in order for group A to be group B, for example, they have to work together as one machine, okay? Cons: need solid routines and supervision, okay? Because in this kind of seating, you're not the teacher, you're just a guide. You're not the person who is lecturing them or giving them everything in a spoon. No, they're depending on themselves. They are depending on their knowledge and their ability to cooperate and to work independently, okay? But in order to reach this level of responsibility and awareness, they have to be trained first. So it's always important to start with the group routines and roles from the beginning of the year. Another seating or organization, which is combination. Now, for some teachers, this is a bit challenging, but actually, if you think it through, you're going to see or find out that this is very beneficial and very important, especially for the heterogeneous classes. Not all classes have the same level of students. Students might have different abilities and backgrounds and knowledge in the very same classroom. So this kind of organization makes it easier for you to group students, okay? You can make, let's say, high achievers group. You can make average students here, low achievers here, and you can even put the students who do not want to collaborate. They prefer working on their own, okay? On their own. So the pros of this organization is great for classes with students of varying learning levels, methods of learning, and behavioral issues. Sometimes there are students who are a bit introvert, or there are some students who are not auditory learners. Some other students are visual learners. So There are some students that get distracted easily, so they can be seated here at the end of the classroom with some headphones on so they can isolate themselves from all the noise around them, for example. There are some other students who behave negatively in the classroom, or they're always causing a fuss, or this day is not their day, simply. So you can put them here, locate them here aside so they can work independently without bothering others and without putting himself or herself in trouble. Another pro is mix and match to best fit your needs and your students' abilities. We can later on discuss something called centers. You can implement centers here easily when you are grouping students into groups. We will dig deeper into stations and learning centers in a few minutes. The cons of this organization is students may not like to be sitting in a different configuration from their peers, okay? So maybe this introvert student, okay, he's introvert, he's not so confident in working with others, but maybe when he sees everyone is collaborating with each other, he feels maybe jealous, or he feels that he's different, okay? But if you are, again, an experienced teacher, you're experienced in dealing with your students, and most importantly, you know your students very well, you will know how to make this happen and how to make these seats here over here work. Another con is the challenge of catering to every student's learning needs. Now, with this organization over here comes the challenge of differentiated instructions. So, while planning your lesson plan, you have to be aware of each and every group of learners, okay? The auditory students, the visual students, the kinesthetic students, the low achievers, the high achievers, the average students. So you have to keep in mind, and you have to keep a section in your lesson plan, tips or some action plans, how to cater each student every day, especially when you're seating them like this. Now here comes the most exciting organization, which is flexible seating. This kind of seating arrangement is an absolute classroom change. It's so innovative, so creative, and so inspiring. If you're thinking of changing to flexible seating, though, it may be an idea to have a bit of a trial period to see if this sort of layout is going to work for your classroom. So start, for example, first of all with groups, and then add one flexible seating corner, for example. Add to it the bean bags, for example, corner for your library section, for example. Or add a table on the corner for independent reading and writing. Now let's go to stations or learning centers. What are stations or learning centers? It's when teacher distributes students into groups among different corners or stations located in the classroom. At least one station has to include computer-based experience, especially in our days now. So it's when the teacher is grouping the students into groups and distributing them among corners or stations in the classroom. We'll see some examples now. Why should we use stations or learning centers? If you want to encourage independency, collaboration, improve the knowledge retention, save time, and work on several objectives or skills at the same time, then this is your solution. This is where you have to go. When can you use stations or learning corners or centers? You can use it when you are introducing a new topic. And in this case, your students are the ones responsible for exploring the concepts. Or you can use it as practicing corners, practice skills. Each center will have some practice sheets, activities, experiments to work on in order to practice a rule learned or any other concept. Or, obviously, you can use it for assessment, okay? Now, for each usage, there's a certain criteria that you have to follow, okay? Of course, when you are trying to introduce a topic or a concept, it's going to be different than preparing assessment tools. How can you implement the stations or learning corners? First of all, you have to decide what your stations for today are. What are the stations that you're going to work on today? 2. Create a log for each station with the instructions students should follow. And this needs practice. We said that this learning strategy encourages students to be independent, and they are responsible for their learning, okay? That's why you need to write the instructions in a log or on a card and hand them the card of instructions so they can read what they're supposed to do, okay? As if you're giving them a plan, and they have to follow this plan in order to reach to the knowledge that you want them to reach to. Explain to them what are the stations for today and how long should they stay in each station. Of course, you're not going to spend the whole day in one station. We said one of its pros is to save time, okay? But of course, in the beginning of the year, when you're getting them used to this strategy, you have to give them enough time, okay? So they can finish their task in each corner. Number 4, practice rotation. Make rituals or signals or signs for that, and practice what to do after each signal, okay? Your signals can be, for example, cards that you raise them up, like street signs, or they can be whistling, or they can be claps, or they can be bells, ringing bells, for example. Examples. Let's say today I'm going to work on 4 corners. Technology, teacher-led. This means that the teacher is going to be supporting this group. Usually, the teacher-led corner is specified in a bit complicated things, okay? Not the easy one, the easy skills, or the skills that can be reached by the students easily, okay? If there is a skill that's complicated, then the teacher has to assist. Then there is an independent corner or station, and then there is collaborative station. For example, the technology center, it will take us 20 minutes to finish the task in the technology center. For example, give students a task to search for endangered animals. So there is a laptop or computers in the center. You will ask the students to find whatever they can find about endangered animals. What's the meaning of endangered animals? What are some examples? The reason they are endangered, etc. So they're going to collect all of the information that they can, and maybe they can print them out, maybe you can provide them with a printer, or they can take screenshots, or they can write down notes in their notebooks. Another center is the teacher-led, and this is also 20 minutes. Go over the book pages and explain the scientific concepts related to the lesson we are tackling today. So, in this center, your job as a teacher is to explain to the students the scientific concepts, for example. In the independent corner or center, you're going to ask the students to read a book related to the topic we're tackling. So we're talking about endangered animals. Include some scientific books in your library that tackle this topic, and you'll give them time to read it. Or you can give them the task of copying the scientific concepts in their notebooks and writing their meanings. The 4th center, which is collaborative, you'll give the students the task of writing an informational paragraph about the issue or the subject we are discussing today, which is endangered animals. The paragraph should include a topic sentence, supporting details, and facts. So in this center, you are not just practicing or the scientific skills, you're also practicing the writing skills. Remember to add another center that has free activities for those who finish early. So if any student finishes early from any center, whether the independent or the teacher-led or the technology, they can go to the free activity center and they can finish tasks, work on free tasks over there. So this is the first part of the video, and next week we're going to dig deeper in how to implement or run the stations or the learning centers. Stay tuned.